This is the e-learning podcast, episode number 46.
I wear like 10 hats because of the skills that I have. But I'm always grateful for my team. And that's why the show is called Unicorn Jazz, the thing I do. It's about the thing you do, that we all need each other. And it's about going on a journey. Again, I love all my books for adults. Because it reminds us that as we grow up, that there's many things that we're going to do in life, and we all need each other. I needed my artist and illustrator. I do paint, but I couldn't do what he does.
Right.
Technology, Magnum Mouse here, look at us. We're connecting through technology in different parts of the world.
Welcome to the e-learning podcast from lmspulse.com. My name's Stephen Laddick, and I'm the director at LMS Pulse. My guest for today is Lisa Caprelli, who is an author and speaker with 16 books published under her belt and in several languages. With her series Unicorn Jazz and Skip a Step, Lisa manages to transform a past life as a marketing and branding consultant into a journey about the value of being true to yourself and finding your true purpose. These are lessons that are as valuable for children as they are for the 100+ CEOs that she's worked with. If you're one of many experts in the audience today, I suspect Lisa's story will resonate with you, especially for those of you who have pivoted over the last 18 months from delivering your special sauce personally to virtually. In this very friendly and magical conversation, we talk about what it takes to break through the confines of a traditional corporate setting to embody and realize your passion. Here's a pro tip: discover and then hone your passions while in your corporate life. We also talk about why Lisa finds it so valuable to stay close to children's minds as sources of perspective, inspiration, and motivation. And finally, we talk about the value of keeping your team engaged and constantly rewarded. Remember, there's no such thing as a one-person show. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The e-learning podcast is sponsored by the e-learning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And lmspulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at lmspulse.com.
Hello, Lisa. How are you today? Welcome to the e-learning podcast.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me. I'm so excited to be a guest on your show.
Nice. Lisa, where do we find you sitting today?
I live today in Huntington Beach, California. I'm so grateful to have lived here 20 years. I'm originally from Texas.
Oh, wow. That's so you made the opposite move of most people. Like I think like all of the migration today is from Huntington Beach to Texas, right?
Well, today it is. I moved here 20 years ago with like nothing but like $100 kind of story. And it was my mission to figure out what I could do versus what I can't do. And I've been self-employed and been an entrepreneur ever since and always done okay.
Yeah, all right. Nice. Excellent. We're recording this at the bottom of May in 2021, just so everybody has a time capsule there. You are the author of 16 books I'm reading here, most in the Unicorn Jazz series. You are coming out with a TV show, that is associated with that and everything. Give us, before we dive into like how it happened, give us the overview of what it, what exactly is that we're going to be talking about here. What is Unicorn Jazz? What's the purpose behind it?
Yeah, well, Unicorn Jazz represents that we're all unique unicorn jazz. That's one of the reasons I picked her as a character, as kids often ask me when I go into schools. And I wanted to create a iconic character that people would relate to, and adults as well. If you stop and look around or start paying attention, as I did in my research, kids, adults, boys and girls love unicorns, and I've seen them at the airport in onesies of all genders.
Yeah, true.
And there hasn't been an iconic brand name around a unicorn yet. There's like Hello Kitty, Mickey Mouse, Unicorn Jazz. So I set out to create this with a big vision. It was more than just writing children's book series in the Unicorn Jazz series. She has a musical note for a tale. She's trademarked. And I did that on purpose as well. So I do have a business background, 25 years of marketing and branding. And I went in a 2.5-year quest and research, interviewing 12 different entrepreneurs and leaders, and chapter 13 is my story. And I wanted to ask them what makes for happiness and how do you find meaning in your life. The interviews were not about how did you make a lot of money? Tell me about your, and I saw a common denominator in many of the stories. Many had stories of struggle, every single one of them, some starting over in their second or third business. And as entrepreneurs, that's what we will do. We take the risk to believe in our dream and to create a purpose that, can help and benefit others. And chapter 1 is Michael Gerber. He's the author of E-Myth series. He was 80 at the time I interviewed him.
Oh, wow. Neat.
Jessica Jackley, who did a TED Talk, was on Oprah, had a nonprofit on micro lending that became super popular. Joe Garner, a 6-time New York Times bestselling author, just so many amazing people. Mitch Free, he partnered with Jeff Bezos on a deal and his life changed overnight, again, after hard work.
Sure.
So the common things I found, Stephen, was it's important to have a vision and execute on that. It's important, when I would ask one of my last questions is, what is the meaning of life? As I asked Michael Gerber and many, and it was instantly why it's to create. And so it's almost like all these messages were being told to me and I got to tell them to people for this book. And it's imparting wisdom for young entrepreneur minds. And we all can be young at heart. It's really for all ages, but it was Skip a Step was a way to give back to the younger generation. And if I could have got a book like this to maybe jumpstart my career and my quest for entrepreneurship at a young age, I would have loved that. So that was the intention of the book. At the end of the whole book, I wanted to finally take a chance on my purpose and passion. I'd always helped others. And when you have a career and you're following leaders, you're supporting their passion and purpose. And that we need all that. We need leaders, we need followers.
All right.
And so 3 years ago, I wanted to change my life and no longer do marketing and branding and PR. And I wanted to create something that was going to leave a lasting legacy. And it was Unicorn Jazz. And so since then, I brought characters to life, especially since the pandemic. Trey Ziki, Unicorn Jazz. I have a show called The Thing I Do, which is on Amazon TV. It'll be a series of 5 episodes this summer, 2021. It's over 200 people came together during the pandemic. This is why it's so amazing to help contribute content for the show, which is I describe as a modern day Sesame Street meets Mickey Mouse Club, where kids and adults can send in content that's entertaining and educational for children and families watching.
Holy smokes. So you just put an incredible portfolio of stuff on the table to talk about here. So you woke up one day, you were a professional marketer. You were, this is what you did. And then you said, look, I need a different purpose. I wanted to leave a lasting legacy. The people who are listening right now they are course creators. They are traditional professors and teachers. They are people who are experts in their field. What was the first move for you where you woke up? Was it just that I need something other than making money that motivated this? Or was it like, you had this, brainstorm an idea, or like, take us through that aha moment?
It was a combination of many things. It was a combination that I knew I was always a good writer. My writing is what helped all the companies, whether it's a social media message, whether it was doing radio ads back in the early 2000s before social media. I wrote a book on social media and why we need it called Color Your Message. And when I was a little girl, going back to my childhood, I was shy like Unicorn Jazz. In the first story, Unicorn Jazz moves to a new land in search of new friends. And she feels like she doesn't belong. And again, how many of us can we relate to that in any capacity? Until she meets a friend who believes in her named Wolf the Crow, with the name that a dog should have, did a lot of things intentional on purpose, right? Because he's proud of his name. My name's Wolf. I'm a crow. And so he discovers her singing, and she didn't realize that her talent would make other people happy. The horses who said, you don't look like a horse. You have one weird horn, And I wanted to incorporate songs with my book. So this one, almost all my books come with songs. And so being a mom myself, when my boys were little, I always sang to them or make up songs if the books didn't have them. Wolf the Crow is like many of us. Sometimes we just need one person to believe in us, whether it's a teacher, a professor, a grandmother like mine. Hey, I always say to kids, hey, maybe you're like Wolf the Crow to someone. Maybe you believe in someone. And I have stories, I'm sure you do, of people like that have will and have changed your life. People that are helpless, people that will serve and give back. And for me, I wanted to do that, and through storytelling, that was going to be one way. My artist, David Villalobos, it was his dream to be a published illustrator. He lives in El Paso, Texas, my hometown. He happens to be my cousin, and he is now. And he got into the psychology of everything we wanted to do, and as has so many people who have followed the work of Unicorn Jazz. And it's a way to revisit your childhood. And even if you're a grown up, it's still a way to learn valuable life lessons that we need about kindness, happiness, why it's important to be unique and embrace that.
So how, as someone who has, physical, products that people are buying, you've written these books and you have this TV show, obviously, that they can consume digitally. What's been your experience over the last, let's just say 14 months, 18 months over the pandemic here? I guess it's only 14 months now. Has that altered your path? Have you made different choices about how you're rolling this out? Take us through
Silver lining was, okay, so December before the pandemic, I came out with plushes, and as you can see, we took her out of the storybook, working with China. I was going to go to licensing, and I was working on the business side, licensing my characters, a cartoon series. I have book 1 turned into a screenplay, was going into places to get it used. I was going into schools and speaking to the whole school assembly style, like when we were young and guest speakers came in. I was on a tour getting booked, getting media. People were finding out the messages I was doing, and in teaching kids about getting excited about reading, writing, literacy, and the behind the scenes, and how the teamwork was so important in all the things I was doing. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And into the pandemic, and my going into schools was shut down. And that was if I didn't know that I could go into schools, I would get paid as a speaker for most of them, or if I didn't, for a Title I school or for a school that didn't have a budget, I would work with them. I believe in giving back. I could sell books, I could sell my plushes, and I was. So this was, just about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, as we know. So we didn't know how long the pandemic would last. And I think within 2 weeks of just studying Facebook groups, which I'm in about 150, again, my marketing brain, instead of what I can't do, I said, what can I do? And I woke up and I said, I got to create a show. I got to be able to if in my head, I'm being stopped from going into schools. How do I reach more people, right? And I have a digital background. I know how to put shows together. I produce shows on FM and AM radio, and I knew the power of video, which I was following. And I learned how to edit last year. I have film editors I work with from Biola University that helped me, and so I started reaching out to other people through social media, through Instagram, through Facebook, professional kids through hashtags, and I would say, "Can you want to read?" my book or sing my songs through some of my stories?" And we were getting yeses. We have a kid named Julian Lerner, a Broadway kid. And he just became, he's on Yes Dan Netflix now. He got that during the pandemic. He's also one of the actors on The Wonder Years. So nice. So I connected, of course, always with the parents, typically the moms. They said to me, "You would never have access to my kid if it wasn't for the pandemic. Never."
Why
would be so.
Why is that? Because
they'd be busy. Me reaching out as with no, who are you? Who is Lisa? Who is Unicorn Jazz at the time? I would have a conversation with them, and I always feel relationships and building that matters when I get asked what's important about business, and it's building relationships. I would spend sometimes an hour walking on the beach, an hour and a half, to talking to moms and seeing the pains all of us are having, right? The pains of disconnection. And I would tell them, I would hear about their journey, their children, and I would offer ways to help them with my, skill set. And they would say, well, we're going to help you. What you're doing is bringing happiness to kids. And I would tune out the news and say, well, what can I do? I was already bringing happiness to kids. Let's do it on a larger scale. And can you lend your time or talent? And so Julian sang the Unicorn Jazz Friendship song with his guitar and his own, and I would let them be creative. And what I discovered is how creative these young kids are. Again, you and I didn't grow up where we could just get our phones and record ourselves, right?
Right. Yeah.
Think about, so I realized, oh my gosh, I could get kids to send in their content. I don't have to go produce. Again, we have high quality stuff thanks to, Apple iPhones. And when I would ask an adult to send me something for the show, describe it, it was never the same as the kid, night and day, the kid. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you didn't get my vision. So I am so happy to report that I love working with children, and I connect with them on FaceTime. And we have Emily Isabel. She's in Brooklyn, New York. I was just out there early May. We recorded 3 songs that I co-wrote together. Those are part of the show. Incredible kid. She's been acting and singing since she was like 4 or 5 years old. She's been on a Broadway tour of The Sound of Music, 93 cities. And by the way, some of these kids have gone with me on virtual Zoom visits. I got to build that relationship. And I said, do you want to come on and speak to a whole school of 300 to 1,000 kids? Yeah. I mean, what else were they doing? People who have this talent, just, you have talent being a host and connecting. We want to have a voice and reach as many people as we can. So thankfully, the technology of platforms like Zoom and other software didn't stop us. Thank God we had technology.
So the way that you've just described the last 5 minutes, it just sounds like one success after another. It sounds like one thing just fell into a place after another. I need to hear the challenges. This cannot have been, there's just like this easy ride. Like give me like what are the top 3 things that you struggled with while writing the books, while putting together the show, etc.?
Well, I believe in finding balance, and in my book, Skip a Step, I believe, and this is my research, that bringing happiness and meaning in 5 areas of life, which is family, friendship, career, connection, adventure. So in life, we need to always figure out the fuel level. Sometimes when you're working in your career, and rightfully so early on, you might not give, your time and energy to other areas. And there's no right or wrong for that balance of 5 hats, which I've been interviewed on. So to answer your question, I did a good job of balancing all that. I probably worked more than ever during COVID, instead of watching TV, watching the news. The challenge would be putting together my own studio, which behind the scenes here, I have lights and coming up with puppets, waiting for China to give us the puppet. So in the meantime, we use this puppet called Unicorn Jack, who's part of Happiness News, which we're never going to get rid of Unicorn Jack. My partner helped me. Challenge is I went through a divorce during that time. Very hard. Never expected that to happen. And I had to pick myself up and continue my mission of Unicorn Jazz. And that was very, very hard. And
oh wow.
But for me, the greater good, I really feel, I do believe in God, and I believe that God put Unicorn Jazz in my life to keep me going, because all behind the scenes, all the families and friends and people that know me as the leader of all this happiness, and here something traumatic happens to people in life, and the grief and loss of that. It's something that the work with the children kept me going even stronger. And I had so many more people behind me during that time in my life that I didn't know. I was very humbled and blessed. I was humbled and blessed before, but even more so now. And so I have even a bigger purpose and passion to help and connect with others. And you said 3 things. One more thing that would be a challenge is reaching more people and not wanting this to be a global national name, and it's not yet. And I have a publicist, and we're working on it. So I appreciate shows like yours where we could be a platform that one day we will all rise together, and everyone who's contributed will have mattered. and the way that I have led it. I'm just a spokesperson for it. It's a combination of people that have helped me.
I was just saying that that's my next question, that, it sounds like you've done so much. I mean, there's book writing, there's book publishing, there's illustrating, there is a TV show, there's songwriting. Like I'm mashing together all of this, and I'm bringing this all together. Your platform ultimately is edutainment, right? I mean, there's entertainment for kids, but there's a clear educational message, both, social dynamics as well as, reading skills and those kinds of things. I know, or pre-show as well, we were talking, you've got, you're even translating your books right now into Spanish and other languages and whatnot. Tell me what the we is in the business. So is it, are you using the royal we, like you're press 1 for support, press 1 for sales, press 1 for, on the phone?
Yeah, I wear like 10 hats because of the skills that I have. But I'm always grateful for my team. And that's why the show's called Unicorn Jazz, the thing I do. It's about the thing you do, that we all need each other. And it's about going on a journey. Again, I love all my books for adults. Because it reminds us that as we grow up, that there's many things that we're going to do in life, and we all need each other. I needed my artist and illustrator. I do paint, but I couldn't do what he does.
Right.
Technology, Magnum Mouse here, look at us. We're connecting through technology in different parts of the world. And singers, I like to sing, but there's no way I would dare sing my children's album. I got professional singers. And, my sisters in the beginning were like, Lisa, you're not a good singer. Don't ever sing. And I'm like, well, it's kind of hard not to, but I will put the amplified music video behind me. And social media, I have people that are experts in that, young college students, even though I can guide them. And by the way, some of the college students that have been with me on this journey, they've gone on to get some really good jobs, and they still volunteer helping me, because they say they understand we're not a nonprofit, even though I have led nonprofits, but they believe in the greater good of it, and that comes from the leadership that was taught to me once. And I just believe that if you are doing good and right things and helping each other, helping people for the greater good, people will help you. I didn't expect any of that. I have principals, educators, teachers, librarians, all that understand the works when I'm so privileged to speak to a school, even if it's virtual. And I put on a show. It's like you said, entertainment. In the beginning, the typical author story time we would be reading the book. I actually do have a song. I put on the first 5 minutes of a little preview of our show, The Thing I Do, with video, with the puppets, with a little game show by Trey Zeke. And by the way, the character Trey Zeke voice is done by my older son, Matthew, who's a nurse. He's so funny. Working with him alone, and it brings me the greatest joy. He's so funny, and we put the bloopers on our social media, and everyone says we want more of Matthew, meaning the character Trey Zeke. So it's my son, Trey, who's now almost 16. He didn't want nothing to do with the unicorn brand because he's a sports boy. So his name's Trey. I named this one Trey Zeke. And he was okay that I include Trey Zeke. And these two are the ones that play together. And, I want to bring more characters out in my book. I have a book called Ocean Animals. We're partnering with some ocean foundations it's ready. We have to plan it, but why the ocean matters to us is 2/3 of our Earth is
so tell
water.
me this. So one of the things that our audience is really interested in is, how do you bring learners in and then keep them engaged? So you've chosen an entertainment platform where there's books, there's plushies, there are songs there, these kinds of things. What, again, I just want to flip the question there, because it just seems like, hey, I grew up with Sesame Street. I grew up with Fraggle Rock.
And you remember,
I'll date myself, right? So what are the challenges you find in the engagement, conversation, the question, is it, I'm not going to lead the witness. What are the challenges that you find in, when you go into a school, or when you're, in your online session, or you're doing a virtual session with a lot of kids? What are the challenges that you have, and how do you overcome them?
Well, the challenges is, as if you are a parent with a school age child, whether they're in elementary, middle, or high school, is to keep their engagement going. I get to go in for about 45 minutes, capture their attention. That's why I have to have video, because we know video is going to engage them. They want to know that you have a YouTube channel and what you have good content on there. They want to know, the younger generation wants to know like how adept you are with technology, that you're not going to see this because I have a virtual background, but I could show them a green screen, my glove, and they probably already know. They figured out a lot of things that you and I didn't grow up with. And remember, technology is anything invented after you were born. And so I'm different in that teachers, I mean, I can't imagine teaching 6 hours a day or whatever you can, and constantly having to entertain them. It's different for me because I just get a small section of time and to capture the attention, and they're all engaged. It's always about bringing attention back to them and getting them engaged. So to answer, the challenge would be if you don't engage them, if and a lot of kids are hurting, you don't know where they are, and they could interrupt the chat session, which we sometimes manage. And thankfully that rarely happens. I always have like a moderator helping me because I'm there to entertain, not to really enforce
Sure,
manners. But so the challenge would be maybe sometimes manners in different parts of the world that I work with. But that's very minor. The challenges would be that it's been a long time now, the pandemic, and we all want to get past this.
So people, to teachers, schools, organizations bring you in as an engagement piece, right?
Yeah.
How does a typical teacher, or what would they do to work with you? Would is it just a matter of bringing your books in? Do you have lessons plans that you bring?
Yeah, I have actually.
Or what?
Excellent question. I have beyond the book activities and coloring pages and worksheets for all my books, and I always provide them free, which I always do because it gets the teachers and parents and kids using them and diving into the characters, which was important to me. We want them to use it. They find me, they'll do a Google search like Zoom virtual author visit or in person, which I'm getting requested for the new year. And I already have like a full proposal package that shows what I do. A lot of schools already know, like just by author visit, and they just assume what you're doing is what I have found, and I always over deliver. They don't know they're going to get a show. They don't know that I'm going to teach about teamwork and behind the scenes and music. Like that's not a typical author. And so for me, I don't know how to be any other way but bring on an entertaining, product, brand, service, because my background was marketing and branding.
Sure. Okay, cool. So Lisa, my last question for you is one I ask everybody on the podcast, which is you've kind of described it in general, but what does the next 6 months to 12 months look like for you? Is it returning to schools? Obviously the show is coming out or is out. What's coming down the pipe, and what are you excited about?
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to connect with bigger leaders that are in the more movie film industry. If I need to meet with directors, producers to be able to do my content, even if I need to do a Kickstarter to produce our next season of the thing I do, because I don't have to talk about an idea. I'm saying this is what we've done. And that was important to me. It's going back into schools, going to do events. This weekend, I'm going to put on a princess costume and I'm going to be a princess and read story times with little girls and do a photography session. So if anywhere I could be in front of kids is my platform. And even middle and high school, I can speak to them different, obviously I'm not going to speak to them in puppet voices or anything, but get them excited about behind the scenes career opportunities, because they're all going to go on and want to know what should I be and how do I get there.
Fantastic. Lisa Caprelli, you are the author of Unicorn Jazz, which is a series of, I think it's 16 books now, right?
Not 16 Unicorn Jazz books, 16 books I've done, including business and
okay. All right.
But,
all right.
Unicorn Jazz. Yeah, okay. Lots of books, and unicornjazz.com if you or your audience wants to find them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the eLearning Podcast. If you like what you've learned today in this episode, I encourage you to either follow us or subscribe to us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. And please do share this episode with one or two of your colleagues or friends. Also, I just want to remind you that you can level up your online learning game with all of the information that's available at the eLearning Success Summit. You can get your free ticket at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And finally, You can also stay up to date on everything that's important, all the news and the resources for e-learning professionals at lmspulse.com. Get our free newsletter by just going to lmspulse.com today. Thanks again.